Oh, it's a very different night. It's census night. Discovering the answers to your WA property questions is also what Property Avenue WA is about tonight. Welcome to our WA Property Podcast, and of those that maybe check us out more often, realise that there's only one person here. Yes, unfortunately, we've had a late withdrawal. So it's me. It's me, flying solo. I'm Tony Viner, for those that aren't aware, regularly known as TV. And tonight, our broadcast will be a little different, as Oscar, unfortunately, as I say, was a late withdrawal. And we will just move on. We'll have a brief, perhaps a more brief broadcast tonight than we normally would do. But we'll cover a number of topics, and certainly you've got some really interesting questions that have been sent through to us over the last few days. And as recently as today, I've got a couple of good ones, so we'll definitely go through those. But tonight, we obviously won't be able to. I just don't like intruding on Oscar's territory, and he loves his stats and his review of the sales of the rental market. So we won't go through that tonight, but we do have a number of other segments that we'll continue to do, and that's certainly reviewing some of the property headlines and some of the property news that's been out and about over the last few days. We'll also, as I say, discover the answers to your property questions, and I've got several really good questions. In fact, one of them covering is talking, which I find it's probably a topic in itself, but with regard to transferring between family members. So we will review that and have a respond to those questions that have been asked. And we'll also, one of Oscar's favourite little what's on the notice board. And if you're wondering, if those that saw our little intro video, if you're wondering some of those little segments on there, you might have thought, hang on, what's all that about? Well, you might just find out when we go to what's on the notice board. We won't be able to do the if question because I haven't got my partner in crime to ask the question to. But we'll cover as much as we can, and we'll certainly encourage you, if you do have any questions, you can get a hold of us via our live chat line. And also, obviously, for those that are doing listen to the podcast, which comes out every Wednesday, then you can get access to us via our Facebook page, our Instagram, and our Twitter account. So there's plenty of options with any of your property questions, and certainly some people are sending direct emails to me for those who have my email. So there's plenty of options, and the focus is specifically, as we say, this is your avenue to WA property matters, and that's what we're all about. Today's Census Day, so you probably maybe you've already done it. I know my wife got stuck into our census application this afternoon, and that saved me a little bit of time. So that was good, but it didn't take her as long as I expected. So I really haven't had a look. I'll check that out, but I thought it would have been a more long-winded, maybe our response, because there's only the two of us in the house, there was less to answer. Maybe it's a bit different when it's more in living in the house and a bigger family. But the other thing that I wanted to mention too is that with regard to what we're doing, Oscar was talking recently with some of the headlines that I think we raised last week, some of the headlines that have been going on about the property market and where that's heading. And interestingly, and probably this is more of a headline than anything, but there's been some talk of late about where the boom is heading, and is that waning, if you like. And I certainly have my own thoughts about that, and statistics. We're obviously relying on that as well with regard to some of those opinions. But it is quite varied when you have a look at the headlines and you read different articles that are available. And I certainly, as Oscar will regularly remind me, I certainly go through and read a number of articles throughout the weeks and different accesses that I have. And they are quite varied, although there are some very specific opinions with what's going on here in WA. And you've got to be careful, as we've always emphasised, and hence how this program started some 64 episodes ago. Sometimes don't get caught up in what is being said and some of the statistics that are suddenly you realise they're eastern states and not Western Australia. And so it's really important to be aware of what is going on. Certainly, WA market, from our observation, is still very busy. And if it is waning a little bit, I don't think there's people in the marketplace will be all that concerned, because I think we all just need a breather. Certainly, my profession background is in the conveyancing world, and I know just how busy my office is and how busy my other friends that are associated in the profession, how they are going. Certainly the real estate fraternity, they've just been non-stop. And when you talk to finance brokers and you talk to bankers, it's exactly the same message across everybody you speak to. So it is still very busy. It's, as we've sort of said, the sting's certainly come off the marketplace, but it is winter time. We've had some pretty ugly weather, and I think that's going to have an influence on what is going on as well with regard to the market. But then I get people inquiring with me, and I think I may mention this last week, whereby people have sort of put offers in 2 or 3 places at different occasions, not all at once, and have found that they have been unsuccessful because there's been other bidders. And I know we had a question I think it was last week, whereby someone was saying, well, I keep on missing out, and I'm sort of being beaten by $40,000-$50,000 in my offer. But I think, as Oscar emphasised last week, discounting is pretty much a non-event when it comes to putting an offer in. As long as the asking price is not ridiculous, then you need to be a little bit sensible with regard to your offer, because there's a chance that your discounted offer is probably not going to be accepted if there are other buyers in the marketplace looking at the same place that you're looking at. So you need to consider those things when it comes to that. What we'll do, I think, first is that we might just go to some of the property headlines, only because of the fact that, and I've got a little, he really does like my jingles. He doesn't say so, but I think he really does. But we will just revert to, because I just wanted to revert to an article that that I saw during the week, where it made mention, was it on the weekend, where is the boom over already? And experts sort of explain why this was in the West Australian, where the growth may not last long. The only thing that I say about that is that, and we're all experts, it's just an opinion, but I just wonder with where we're at with regard to what influence the East Coast has had as far as the buyers are concerned and the marketplace. I know I'm waiting for some things that I have ordered via my local store, and they have been held up quite significantly because of what's happened in the lockdowns. And there was a reference in one of the papers that I read, where they referred to the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank outlined 3 specific scenarios that they suggested, and one was the baseline scenario where they assume that the domestic vaccine rollout accelerates in the second half of the year, which in turn will reduce the frequency of lockdowns, and then that may just allow the international borders to be reopened. Now, that will certainly impact on the East Coast, but I'm quite confident that will also have an impact on our WA property market, and of course that's if that happens, of course, and that's a lot of that's centered around what happens in Sydney, which is looking pretty ordinary. And to all our friends and clients that we have over in Sydney, we wish you well, and I tried to keep in contact with as many as I can just to say hello, because they've been in lockdown for a while now, and there's no guarantees it's going to change anytime soon. So the other scenario they referred to was what they call the upside scenario, and that was a stronger economic path which could occur if the virus is contained more quickly than they are expecting in the baseline scenario, with household consumption and private investment increasing. And again, it all revolves around unemployment. It also revolves around wage increase. But the marketplace, when it comes to property, is the same around the world, and it's really, really, really interesting when you read up on what is occurring around the world. It's just when you consider 12 months ago, the talk was WA was going to dominate and exceed everyone else in Australia. that quite as much as we've been busy, we really haven't exceeded the rest of the country like it was first expected. Perhaps we were the first ones because of our economy. We're the first ones to show some growth, and certainly that has been the case. But it's probably leveled off a little bit at the present time, and so where that goes from here, I think my personal opinion is that we will continue to grow. One, because of our employment. Two, because of our economy and what we've got with our mining industry. And you may recall some months ago where Oscar often referred to the Big C, and we're talking about China. And that has become an issue again, and what impact that may have with our mining industry, which WA relies on so much. What he called some months ago could be exactly that. Let's watch this space. But certainly that will have a massive impact on the WA market, should there be the China impact, as we've said before. Welcome, Shane. Well, I've just noticed one of my young friends has he's made the comment that reserve banks are renowned for being wrong. Can't remember the last thing they predicted that was actually right. Yes. It's a bit like the weather, Shane. We can only predict. We don't have a crystal ball, but I suppose we've got to rely on the Reserve Bank a little bit, because they're the ones who are controlling our interest rates, and they're still very adamant that the rates are going to remain low till 2024. But of course, that's where they were referring to in this particular article that was stated about RBA. Reserve Bank outlines three scenarios. The third scenario they refer to is the downside scenario, and that's a weaker path would occur if the spread of the Delta variant results in more extended and widespread lockdowns. That's pretty obvious with what's been occurring of late, and the international borders reopen more slowly than assumed. And the downsides of scenario, which would then create restrictions on spending, and the possibility of there be a more cautious behaviour by the rest of us in the community, I suppose, as such. And with that more cautious approach, household spending would slow down. So they are the scenarios that the Reserve Bank have identified that could impact on our marketplace. But of course, again, a big influence of that centred around that is the East Coast, and particularly Sydney, and our situation here in WA. It certainly is associated, but I think, as I've said before, Oscar's suggestion of China, I think that could have an even bigger influence, especially when it comes to WA. So that's a pretty basic observation with what we're saying as far as the boom. We will wait and see come spring. It's always predicted to be a pretty buoyant time, and I don't think in the next few weeks or so is going to change any, and that will give us probably an even better idea where things are going. Growth, when it comes to values, have slowed down a little, and although there's still growth, but it's significantly less growth over the last month or two than what it has been in the past here in WA. So we'll see. Again, we'll see where that goes between now and the next couple of months or so. I've also had some questions sent through to me, and I will. I'll quickly revert to those questions. Discovering your property answers. Hi TV, my brother and I have a property together, and we've had it for some years, and he now wants to get out. We've discussed it. We have discussed what we intend to do, and I intend to buy him out. Do we need an agent? My friend said because we are family, we do not pay stamp duty. Is that correct? That's from Peter. Look, there's a few answers to that. And may I emphasise too, and I didn't do it today. Before we do that, I best do because I'm doing this on my own. You can gather that I'm working my way through things. But our disclaimer, which is really important, our disclaimer, general advice disclaimer, the information on this podcast is regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs, and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. I cannot believe I did that. He'll be laughing. I'll bet he'll be laughing. You should obtain and consider the relevant product disclosure statement and financial service guide from our qualified advisor before making any decision to purchase a financial product. And remember, as we keep on saying, please get independent advice when it comes to your issues associated with buying property, and particularly if you're buying investment property, be it your accountant, be it your financial advisor, ensure your structures are right, which gets back to me to one of the questions that have been asked here tonight. So getting back to this question that Peter asked, so he's got a property that he and his brother joint ownership, and they've now decided that one of them's going to buy the other out. And his question was that, do they need an agent? In answer to that, no, you don't, Pete. An agent's not required at all. In fact, your option is that what I would suggest is see your settlement agent, which is someone like myself that does, and they can draw up a contract. That's one option. Because at the end of the day, you need to identify the sale. And it is a sale, even though some people say, I'm just going to take his name off the title. No, it's not a case of taking name off the title. You're actually transferring it. Now, you can transfer a property for a range of reasons. In this case, they've got a valuation, and I only know this because I since made a phone call to discuss it. And so in this case, they've obtained a valuation on the property. And so that then allows them to identify how much they are going to sell and / buy the property for. Once that is done, then we can prepare a contract, or you can have a contract prepared identifying the sale and the sale price. However, sometimes it's not all about a sale price. A sale price could be, you could, for example, it may not be an actual dollar amount. It may be a case where you're going to take over the debt. There may be a loan associated with the property, and you're going to take over that debt. If you're going to take over that debt, we refer to it as a liability clause, and we will create a liability clause within the contract or within the transfer, which is an acceptable legal acceptance of consideration. So you've got to have a consideration. You can't just have nil. So in this case, the consideration is going to be a dollar value, and stamp duty will most definitely apply. There is under no circumstances, whether it be your brother, your sister, your mother, whatever, if you are in joint ownership with another party and you're going to buy the other out in one way or another, then stamp duty applies, and it's necessary for your settlement agent. They will lodge that contract or that transfer for an assessment of duty, and that is the duty you'll pay. Now, you can, if it's a ridiculous valuation and you or an assessment based on a valuation that they have valued, then you can challenge that valuation. However, you can't just challenge on the basis that you don't agree. You have to have some specific supporting evidence. For example, having a licensed valuer do a licensed valuation on the property, an independent licensed valuer, and that will suffice if that valuation is less than what the Valuer General's Office via State Revenue have assessed. So it's really important that you do that. I would recommend you get a valuation or get a real estate agent appraisal when you make a decision of what you're going to do, and then present that and to assist with your settlement agent when they prepare the contract. When you've done that, then the assessment will done, and then the settlement process can proceed. So it is a settlement, it is a transfer. It's not just a case of taking a name off a title. The only other circumstance, or not the only other circumstance, the other circumstance for something of that nature would be where you have a marriage split or a partnership split. And if you just agree and say, no, we're not going to get consent orders done, we're just simply agreeing on who's going to do what and who's taking over what, stamp duty will apply. With consent orders, stamp duty will not apply. So if you and your partner are splitting up and it's become, and you've agreed to one of the parties going to retain the property and pay the other out, or take over the debt that's remaining, then there will be a value based on that half share, and stamp duty will apply if there's no consent order. If there's a consent order, which is done via a lawyer, and it's lodged through the family court, you don't physically attend court, but the documents are lodged through the court system, then that consent order is stamped by the family court, and that is lodged with the settlement agent will lodge those documents, and you'll pay nominal duty. The other scenario where stamp duty won't apply is for farming property, and farming property only where it's been transferred to specific family members, and you can only transfer that farm to family members in a 5-year period. So you can't transfer, for example, to your 2 sons, and then the 2 sons decide, one of the sons decide that he's not going to continue, so then he transfers his share to his brother. If that occurs, stamp duty will apply if it's within the 5-year period of the initial transfer when dad transferred the farm to the 2 boys. I hope that makes sense. But it's a really good question. Another question we've received tonight is, hi guys, we've proceeded with buying a property and our offer has been accepted. However, this is quite common, and it's a good question actually. However, when we then approached our bank, they've advised they're unable to do finance in the current buyer's name. They have told us we need to change the contract. Are there any issues for us to do that? Apparently, we can just do a variation. Will that be okay? That's from Sue. Look, remember again, everybody's circumstances are different, and please, this is a very general answer, but it's one that should help you if you are in these circumstances. And if you do have a contract and things have changed, then there are a variety of scenarios that can have an expensive impact on you when it comes to changing. And when I say expensive, I'm referring to stamp duty. So if a situation occurs whereby the bank is not under the current, let's say you bought the property or you put an offer in a proprietary limited company or something of that nature, and you then went to your bank and the bank said, no, we can't do the finance for that and you won't be able to buy that property in that name. It's not a case of just changing the contract. What you would be doing is cancel that contract altogether. You would not proceed with that contract but you would need a letter from the bank confirming that they're not going to proceed with finance. If you had a situation where the contract was, let's say you bought it in you and your partner's name, or let's say you bought it in your name only, and you went to the bank and the bank said, no, you need that to, we will give you the finance if you buy it in joint names, but not in your own name because you don't have the capacity in your own right, then you can do a variation. But again, I would strongly recommend you speak to your settlement agent and discuss that and clarify your circumstances, because again, that may apply. There's what they call a substitute purchaser application, and that depends on the circumstances. For example, a husband and wife, if I bought the property, went off and bought a property and I wanted to buy it in my wife's name, and then we decided later that was what it was going to be, then we can do what we call a substitute purchaser application. But you still need to let the agent know, and so he can let the seller know there's been a change with regard to that contract and as far as who the buyer is. I mean, the buyers are still one and the same to a point, but there are some technicalities associated with who you buy that property, in what name you buy that property. But it's not just a case of a variation in all cases, and it's certainly, you've got to be very, very careful when it comes to implication of stamp duty, because if you get it wrong when it comes to a buyer, and this is why I think I've said it more than one occasion when it comes to you're buying in a super fund or you're buying in a trust, before you do anything else, and as our disclaimer says, get your independent personal advice. And my first advice to my clients when they contact me about buying property in super funds or trusts or whatever, we will liaise with the client's accountant and we'll encourage the client to speak to your respective accountant, because get it wrong and you could pay double duty. And to give you some idea, we had one recently where this duty was 25,000. Get it wrong, that duty suddenly becomes 50,000. So don't worry about the settlement agent's fees and all the other fees you got to pay. They don't change. But when it comes to stamp duty, there are no big pardons. Get it wrong, and it's a very, very expensive exercise. So I cannot emphasize that enough, that you, whenever you go to buy a property, clarify your situation first, be it with your settlement agent, be it with your property consultant, be it with your accountant. Your accountant would be my first port of call, particularly if you're buying a property for investment or buying a property with your super fund. So there we go. That's with regard to that question, and I appreciate that. Hi, TV and Oscar. Enjoy your property podcast. Just wanted to check with you what assistance is available to build. Oh, I read this earlier on. Available to build or renovate a home. I do not qualify as a first home buyer. How I've been told by a friend the grants have been extended. How would I apply, Lynn? Well, the grants haven't been extended. They've been extended, yes, but only extended for those that already have their applications in place. And I actually tried to get hold of some information because of Oscar's health. Late today, I had to rejig the whole program, and I'm not bucketing him at all, but I had to quickly rejig a few things with what we were planning to do tonight. But I did go and have a look with regard to this information. So what's happened is that there is no facility available if you're going to start building now, if you're going to do renovations. Those grants that were provided by federal and state government ceased April 30, I think, was when they finished. However, they did extend the time frame in which you could complete or start your building, and I think that's gone to 18 months. So now that's gone out to end of December, I'm pretty sure, but I'll double check that for you. But unfortunately, there is no grant, and sadly, I've had I had another question asked of me with regard to grants and what's available for first home buyers, and I think I touched on this last week or the episode before. There is very, very little available for established first home buyers. If you're buying an established home, then you can get a grant. You've got to do a first home buyer grant application, but only for concession of stamp duty, and that is very limited. That's only up to 430,000, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of options available for $430,000 properties. I mean, there are some about, and I've had clients that have done that, but there's probably more above that. And then once you go above that $430,000 threshold, then your concession, you start paying stamp duty at a concessional rate. And off the top of my head, I think it gets to a maximum $530. And then you start paying normal stamp duty as every other mum and dad who's had one or two properties before. You start paying full stamp duty. So that does impact. And there is no grant. So if you're building, there's a $10,000 grant. But if you are buying an established residential property, now that $10,000 grant is only for first home buyers. That's not for an established, that's not for someone who's built before or renovating. That's only for first home buyers. But there is no formal government assistance for buying an established property other than stamp duty, as I said. So, Lynn, unfortunately, unless someone can tell me otherwise, I'm not aware of any assistance. There are some builders, although that's probably not the case in the current market either, who were offering different incentives and different benefits if you did your renovation or did your building with them. But I think at the moment they're all that damn busy at the moment. That's the last thing they probably need. So with all due respect, but that's what it is. And another question I had received. Hi, TV. What about Oscar? I'm hoping you can assist me as I'm trying to find the title of our property. The bank have advised they don't have it. I need to change the ownership of the property. However, not sure what I do about the title. Our loan is paid off. Cheers and thanks, Ed. Well, Ed, and again, I did actually ring Ed because we were talking about this. The situation being is that many people get confused with regard to a title. And we're talking WA. The actual original title, a lot of it's now being converted to digital titles. So in many cases now, you will go to borrow money from the bank, and the bank is going to use your property as security for your loan, and they will register a mortgage against that title. And people say, "Oh, I've paid my mortgage out." The mortgage is the security for your loan. You pay your loan out, and you have your mortgage discharged. And what that means is your mortgage is discharged from the title, so it's removed from the title. But there's a process to do that. So I go back a step. With regard to your title, what is common practice in today's marketplace and has been for a while, the banks will they'll do what they call a non-issue title. So it's a digital title. So there is no hard copy. There is not what they call which once upon a time used to be called a duplicate title. So if you took your duplicate title into the bank and said, "Here's and they approved the loan." Back in my day, we'd approve the loan, and if the client had the title already, or they were doing settlement, we'd receive the title. The settlement agent received the title. That would be exchanged to the bank at settlement, and the bank would take that to titles office, and that would be processed. The names would be changed on the title, and that hard copy title, that duplicate, would be given back to the bank. That doesn't happen anymore. So if you, again, I've had a client not that long ago who had his old title, his old duplicate title. He took it into the bank, gave it to the bank because he was providing that as security to assist his son to borrow some money. Unfortunately, the banking person that took the title and gave him a receipt for that title, when the son paid that loan out, his father went to get his title and the title was no more. What had occurred is, as I just explained earlier, the banks now do what they call non-issue titles. So that title was lodged with titles office, but they don't use hard copies anymore. They're still around, but they don't use them. So unless you ask for it otherwise, that title is destroyed. So in this case, this poor gentleman, it had a lot of history on that title and it went back a long way. He was quite disappointed because the bank, for one, didn't tell him that they weren't going to get that title back. And of course, that title could never be recovered. It's been destroyed. So getting back to Ed's question about his title, the banks used to retain, if you put your title in, you had your title, they used to keep them in what they call safe deposit boxes. They don't often have those anymore. And if they do, they don't have them at the local branches. However, if you've said you've paid out your loan and you haven't got your title, best to check with your settlement agent or someone similar to see, and they can do a check on that title to see whether it's a non-issue title. If there's a non-issue title, it means there is no duplicate, all right? But if it is a hard copy title and no one can find it, let's say it's being discharged, there's no longer a mortgage register on the title, and the records indicate that title's been sent back to you, then unfortunately, even though we refer to using digital titles, unfortunately, we've got to apply for a lost title. And that costs money. And you've got to go through a bit of a process. And a lost title process can be a bit messy. And we've certainly done a few in recent times. We had one lady whose husband decided he would clean up and help her while she was in hospital. And what he didn't check was the biscuit tins that had their titles in it, which he then very trying to do the right thing, threw them out in the rubbish tip. And I kid you not, it was a situation where they had to quickly, this is a few years ago now, but they had to quickly, when she got out of hospital and found out what had happened, they had to quickly go to the tip. Unfortunately, it was in a country town, and they spent a lot of hours and a couple of days, but they eventually found the biscuit tins. Fortunately, because there's a few titles involved, and there would have been a few dollars to replace them. Even though they're duplicates, they're not photocopies. So people do get confused with what a duplicate title is. We're not talking about a photocopy. We're talking about a duplicate of the original. The original never leaves titles office. So, yes, Ed, first things first, we check to see whether, because your loan's paid out doesn't always mean that the title's been discharged, the mortgage has been discharged. So first things first, we see if the mortgage has been discharged. If the mortgage is still registered on the title, and that's quite common, even though you've paid your loan out, the banks don't necessarily discharge the mortgage unless you ask them to. And the reason they don't do that is because if you're going back to want to borrow some more money down the track, and you may do so, plenty of people do, then you don't have to go through the process of registering a new mortgage and the costs involved. It's already in place. So that's why, and they've done that as long as I can remember, even in my days, and that's a long time ago. So first things first, we would recommend, if you can't, then your settlement agent or your property consultant will help you and inquire with the bank, check whether that, and we can do a title search, check whether that mortgage is still registered on the title. If it is, problem solved. If it's not, then we've got to start doing a bit of a search and finding out, okay, who had that title and where did that duplicate title go to? If that can't be located, then sadly you've got to do a lost title application. And if you've sold the property and you're you will need to get that underway ASAP, just to avoid any delays with your settlement. There's no sense in waiting until the property is sold and then you trying to get settlement happening, because a lot of the banks now won't proceed to settlement until that lost title application has been processed and the duplicate has been issued. So important factor. So they are the 4 questions we've had for tonight, and really appreciate those. And we will, if you've got any questions in the future, as I said, you're welcome to send them through to us via our Facebook page, our Twitter, our Instagram account. You can get us via email, or you can get us on Messenger on our respective social media pages, or you can go on our live chat line when we do our live stream every Tuesday. But please send them in. It's really, really good, and they've been some really good questions. And we don't care how simple they may be. We won't use your surname. We'll always use your Christian name. So if you feel embarrassed about your name being broadcast, then we wouldn't do that too. Okay, so it's going to be a fairly brief night tonight, but what we always do, and this is definitely Oscar's favourite little episode, and I've got some little doozies tonight, but let's get on to our segment, shall we? I do miss my little buddy, bouncing off him and having a bit of a laugh. So what's on the notice board? And the purpose of this segment is purely and simply, if you have something, be it a school fete, or you're doing something with your business and you'd like to promote it, and you would like us to talk about it on our property podcast, then send it through to us. Bit of fun, bit of a laugh, and be it a golf event, be it the kids' sports day, whatever it is, we don't care. It might be your birthday. And talking about birthdays, a mate of mine who I've worked with for many a time in the bank, and a friend of mine, one, I'll only refer to him as Dennis, but DP, happy birthday, mate. It was his birthday this week, so we wish him well. And there's another friend of mine, a client of mine. She turns 80 tomorrow, the big 80. So, Pat, happy birthday, my dear. And I'll ensure I have a little beer for you, a little frothy tomorrow in celebrating your birthday. So that's pretty special, 80 years of age. And the other thing I've been trying to keep out, we always look for a few little doozies, but the other thing is, I mentioned it's the census night, and I hope you've all getting through those questions easy enough. The other thing is it's wildflower season, and particularly in the Midwest, the Murchison and the Gascoyne area, that is when it's at its best. And I spoke to a friend of mine in Yalgoo today, and they have said that he was out on his truck, and he said, yes, TV, just in the space of 2 weeks, you can see the difference already. And if you might have seen a post on our Property Avenue WA Facebook page, I shared some great vision that ABC had on their social media page, and I shared that. It's just beautiful, the colours. And I think from all the conversations I've had, they're expecting with the rain we've had this season could be an absolute perler. So if you go, there's places like Yalgoo, Mount Magnet. Where else is there? Meekatharra. Where else would I suggest to go? But look, there's some really, really good places to go for your wildflowers. Coldseam is another place up in the Midwest region. But yeah, our wildflowers are something else, and they're very, very special. The colour is glorious, absolutely glorious. And of course, with a good grain season with the canola and the yellows out there, just with the canola out in the paddocks, hopefully don't get too much rain. Otherwise, the poor old farmers, the crops will be drowning. And that's fair dinkum. That's not just, I'm not joking about that. Too much rain and those crops will go yellow in a hurry, and I don't mean yellow with the flowers. So wildflower season is what's happening between now and you want to be quick. There's a lot of people out and about, I know that, but the wildflowers don't last forever. So you'll probably be, I would suggest you probably want to get, you'll probably get still have them going pretty well through to about the end of September is probably the time to do as far as wildflowers. Now, I've also got, I don't know whether you're aware, but on August the 13th, which is, what's the day? The 10th, so that'll be Friday, is International Left-Handers Day. Now, I know, Oscar, you'll be happy with that. It's also afternoon tea week in the UK. I knew you'd all be excited about this. It's also today. And if you're wondering about our little video, our little intro today, and had the little dogs on it, those dogs are Oscar's dogs and my little Teddy, my dog. Today is World Spoil Your Dog Day. True story. So I took my little dog and we had a little bit of a play and he got an extra treat today. So I hope you look after your dogs. But I will tell you, I'll just quickly go here with regard to that, is that, where are we? I did check this, and the World Spoil Your Dog Day, those people who have time for their dog are considered the happiest. This is fact. The event can be used to spoil dogs and give that little bit of extra time to these devoted creatures. Human beings live longer than dogs. It is a very sad fact. Nevertheless, they are able to get and give so much love that their hosts feel depressed after their death. Very, very true. I think we've all been through that. I certainly have. And it's like losing a family member. Our companions don't care about our wealth. They just love people without any reason. They just want to be with you. They don't complain. They don't express their bad mood. They are always happy when they meet their human friends. Could not agree more. And I get up in the morning and there's my little Mac, rolls over and he's got to have a little rub on the tummy and he's got to have a little cuddle and he's got to have a play. And so just for those of you, Oscar's got two fabulous dogs and we feature them every now and then. It's World Spoil Your Dog Day. So make sure, if you haven't already done so, make sure you spoil your dog. And another very important little notice that came to my attention, the Wongan Hills Golf Club, favourite golf club of mine. It's the RAC Invitation Golf Day on Friday, the 13th of August. Well, Benny, that's also International Left-Handers Day. So you'll have to hit the golf club with the left hand on one of the holes. 13th of August at Wongan Hills. Shotgun start at 11 a.m. So contact if you're over that way and you're a golfer and you want to have a game of golf. 11 a.m. shotgun start, Wongan Hills Golf Club. Sand greens, great hospitality, great people. Do yourself a favour and go there. And today also is, what was I going to say was that it was on Friday just gone. I love this. It was International Beer Day last Friday, but it was also Have a Good Breath Day, I think it was called. Now, I thought there was a conflict of interest there with regard to the two, but anyway, I just thought that a little of a doozy. Hey, folks, that's pretty much it as far as this week's concerned. We just do it short and sweet. Just thought we'd let you know what's going on. Thank you so much for the questions. Hopefully, Oscar will be back next week. I'm sure he will be. And we can do his stats and we'll have a little bit more fun. But I'd like to think that we could answer a few of those questions that everybody did. Join us next week. If you've got any questions, send them through to us. Really, really enjoy doing what we're doing. Have fun doing the census. And how good were the Olympic Games? I really, really did enjoy that. And I thought that coverage was fantastic. But we'll move on. We'll do what we do. Let's hope this rain eases up. And please stay safe. Please enjoy doing what you're doing. And remember, if you are going to buy or if you are going to sell, make sure you get the independent advice that looks after you and your circumstances. Thanks again. Great to see you all, and see you again next week. Take care.